the RPA holds its summer meeting of the state committee on May 18th, the committee will vote on a proposal to amend the state party rules. Here to talk about that proposed rules change is State Committeeman Mike Landry. Hi, Mike.
It is good to see you, Jenny.
It's so good to see you. Thanks for joining us. You're right here with us here in Washington County. Really appreciate it.
That's correct.
I wanted to have you on. You are our state committee man for the Washington County Republican Committee at our, let's see, what month is it? This is May. At our April committee meeting, I believe it was, you brought forth a resolution regarding the two proposed rules changes that will be voted on May 18th at that meeting that we're talking about. Regarding that first proposed rules change was the do not recommend. The second proposed rules change is about bringing the vote from majority to 2/3. Talk to us about why you felt it was important to bring forth that resolution opposing those rules changes.
Well, one of the things regarding Republicans in Arkansas and probably nationally, one of the big values that we have is that there should be local control. Now, we talk about that in government. We want local control at the county level, the state level, that sort of a thing. And my attitude regarding what is going on within the party is we ought to practice those principles within the party itself. And these two proposed rule changes, they may seem like they're sort of like inside baseball. They're not really big things, but they are steps in a direction that, in my judgment, remove the local control of certain aspects of the party from the local committees. The local committees, we're the people that go out there and knock on doors and go out in the heat and campaign for people. And in my case, in one case, get a dog bite while campaigning for somebody. And we're the people that go out and do that sort of a thing. And while we recognize there needs to be the oversight on the part of the state chairman and the state executive committee, because we don't want a pure democracy. We don't want to make every decision that goes on. We still need to retain a voice in what goes on. And I think we need to be jealous about preserving the authority that is at the local level. I think we have a lot of problems nationally in that Congress is no longer jealous about its authority, and it basically allows the president to ignore the will of Congress, and lately, when it comes to the student loan thing, ignore the ruling of the Supreme Court. And Congress ought to be jealous about that sort of a thing. Well, we as members of the local committees, we need to say we don't approve of any removal of authority at the local committee, even though it may seem like a minor thing. And in the case of the do not recommend a candidate, what we hope would be a very rare thing, but still we are the individuals when it comes to not recommending a candidate. We're the people who live with these guys. And if we observe that they are not following the principles of the Republican Party, we need to be able to say, we've got a problem with this individual. The voters can decide what they want to do, no matter what we say as a committee. And then secondly, looking at changes in the rules, a simple majority of Republicans wanting to make a rule change, we think should be sufficient. And when we start raising it to the threshold of 2/3, that is one more step that is removing that authority that we want to preserve.
Just this week, RPA Chairman Joseph Wood sent an email to the delegates, those who will be at that May 18th meeting, letting them know that the proposed rules change number 1, the one that had to do with the do not recommend, that had been pulled. But then he also showed his support for proposed rules change number 2. Talk to us about, were you surprised that the proposed rules change number 1 had been pulled?
Well, I missed that email. I got a new computer in the last few days, and I would rather have a root canal than set up a new computer. So I have not seen that email from Chairman Wood. And Chairman Wood and I were going to have a discussion about some of this stuff, but he's been very busy from the standpoint of what's going on at the national level with
Sure.
the upcoming convention. And we were going to try and do a phone call, but that has not come about because we both are running in about 50 different directions. So I was not aware of that pulling of the do not recommend.
Yeah.
Regarding, and I don't know the backstory on that, regarding the raising the threshold for rules change, um, I'm I'm curious about what the discussion will be at the upcoming state meeting on the 18th. Um, Off the top of my head, I think there may be a greater chance of that rule change not being made. But I'm not sure about that. I think the number one proposal regarding recommendations of candidates, I think there might have been more intense discussion on that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, as I say, I don't know the backstory on why that's been pulled.
Yeah. I think it would just be pure speculation. It said that I believe it was June Matheny out of Pulaski County. She was the one who submitted that. So his email said that she's the one who pulled it. I would venture to say, that one, like you said, there's been a lot of discussion around that one, more so than proposed rules change number 2, and a lot of pushback on it. And so I think that probably would have failed overwhelmingly at committee at that meeting. I don't know about proposed rules change number 2. I don't know how that one's going to go at
I
the
don't
meeting.
either.
I think the argument that the chairman said in the email is that it speaks to consistency and fairness across the board. We've written a few articles that debunks the argument regarding consistency and fairness. And so anyone who has not read those can certainly go to the website and see it. But just give us your thoughts on proposed rules change number 2.
Well, again, it comes back to it is one more step away from the the convention delegates being able to have, I don't want to say input, but strong authority from the standpoint of how rules are supposed to be changed. And these are the sort of things, there are a lot of there are a lot of decisions that are made by the executive committee, and I'm fine with that because we can't determine everything that goes on because, again, that goes into the area of a chaos of a
Yeah.
pure democracy. And also, who's got time for all that kind of stuff? So I
Yeah.
appreciate the work that the state executive committee does. I don't always agree with the decisions that they make, but they are the individuals that are in that place. They are charged with making those decisions. However, when it comes to the basic authority of the Republican Party, the delegates of the Republican Party need to have a strong say in what the rules are that we operate under. So I think this is a very important thing. Again, one more move we need to make to keep the authority where it belongs at the most local level. One of our documents, I think the preamble of our rules says that. Joseph Wood spoke at one event last year in Benton County, and he talked about that grassroots control. So that is something that we really need to preserve.
Will you speak in opposition at the meeting against these proposed rules changes, or this
Well,
one now?
Well, there was a certain individual that I'm looking at right now who
Quit it.
had an amendment to the resolution calling upon me to address the state committee on that. So it's changed, and I will speak to that and or have the resolution from Washington County entered into the record. They need to
Just
know.
asking. That was just a follow-up question, Mike.
Yeah, thanks, Jenny. At any rate, there'll be input
I think so. I think
on
there'll be a
this.
lot on both sides.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be an interesting discussion.
Yeah.
Uh, I think both of these items, especially the one at the convention level rules changes, these reflect growing pains in the Republican Party in Arkansas. We have never had a supermajority. We have a governor that I appreciate greatly from the standpoint of the strong conservative stands that she is taking. And we have kind of growing pains because what do we do with the supermajority? Some people say, well, we're not doing enough. Other people say, well, we're making progress. And some individuals will say, we're not pleased with a policy the governor has. Well, I see maybe one or two things that I don't agree, but they're not big deals. Another thing, there are issues the governor's brought up that a lot of people disagreed with, and they were amended. The security thing that came up a few months ago, I was satisfied with how that turned out. I believe the governor, and I appreciate her concern for her security and her family very much so, especially she having grown up in the governor's mansion. But yet there were some things in that regarding the public's right to know that had to be altered, and I'm reasonably pleased with that. I'm amused by the podium gate situation with the governor because I feel that is like taking a laser beam and shining it around for a cat to chase around something that I think is nothing. So I'm very happy that some members of the media are all caught up in that because they can be busy with that. But we have a situation where we cannot please all the people all the time. And our Governor Sarah is not going to be able to do that. But I think we need a perspective on some of those things, as well as how do we function as Republicans when for the first time in our existence in Arkansas, we have a supermajority. I came into the Republican Party about 2009. It was very much a minority party, and we acted like that. And I heard stories about the people 20 years before, 3 people met as the Republican committee when people, presumably Democrats, threw bricks through their windows. So we're no longer in that, and I'm glad. But now we're in a situation that, whoa, what do we do? Suddenly we're in charge.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, Mike. And I think we've written on this extensively, and most recently, one of our articles pointed that out, and that the Republican Party of Arkansas, with the supermajority, will really thrive and grow when we're focused on the principles of the parties and not so much the personalities, because the personalities ultimately, regardless of who it is, who's in office, they will fail us. And if we hold fast to the principles and the platforms of our party and what makes the party great, because that ultimately will benefit our state and Arkansans, that's the glue that holds a party together and that will make it great, not the governor or any of our elected officials, those personalities. It's the principles. And so I appreciate and hear what you say.
Yeah, we always have personalities because we are people. And the danger we get into, we may have a personality that comes up with policies that are perhaps separate from our platform or the philosophy of the Republican Party, but we may be so enamored with this individual, things may work very well. But if there are policies that get developed there and somebody that we do not care as much about personally, they start operating under those principles, we've got a problem. And I know one of the things I've been thinking as an executive member of the Washington County Republican Committee, we need to be very, very careful about following the rules.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pain sometimes, but there's a reason for them. There's a saying in the railroad industry, they have very strict rules in terms of how they operate trains, but they say those rules are written in blood because people have been hurt and killed by not following the rules. We're not at that stage, of course, in the Republican Party, but some of these rules I think are arcane. And I say, where did that come from? But somewhere there was a reason that that rule was put in, and we will save ourselves a lot of future grief about things we didn't even know about. If we face it again, we're going to have a lot of grief if we violate those rules.
Mike, really appreciate you joining us on Conduit. I think this is our first interview, but I'm so glad that you joined us. And I really appreciate your insight.
Glad to be here.
Anything else that you want to add before we go?
No. I will say one thing that I have
Yeah.
appreciated, two things I've appreciated regarding Conduit. One of the things years ago in the Washington County Tea Party, one of the things we said was we need somebody monitoring what goes on in Little Rock. And I'm appreciative of the fact that Conduit has been doing that continually. Secondly, I assume this phrase was coined at Conduit. It's something I appreciate very much, and that is a standard called, are you or are you not a platform Republican? And I think that's a good way to judge individuals. That sets aside personalities. That sets aside, I mean, we get into this thing, you start calling people rhinos. Well, what is a rhino?
Yeah.
I don't care. That's a derogatory term. But are you a platform Republican? And we've had people that get upset when by Conduit and other people, their feet are held to the fire of the platform. And you have no place to go if you're not following the platform. So I appreciate that.
A little bit bristly. Yeah. Well, thank you for those kind words. And, I've been here at Conduit for just a few years, but Joe and Brenda have stayed true to the principles, regardless of how things have changed over the years. And not many people can say that. And so I appreciate that about Joe and Brenda and Conduit as well. Mike, thank you so much. I'll see you probably Saturday at the 11th and then again at the 18th.
Indeed. All right.
Thank you.
Good to be with you.